All right. Good morning, everybody. How you doing? What's happening? It is Thursday, the 18th of June, 2020, and you have tuned in to Pondering. Congratulations. You had a great idea. You had a great thought. Like lightning. And the idea was to think, to ponder, to consider, to talk about stuff. And that's what we do in this show. Every Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We talk about things you're not supposed to talk about on the show. Politics, religion, sex, money, parenting, whatever. There are no holds barred. And we do this from an unabashedly, unashamedly, and unapologetically Christian perspective. We encourage people not to check their brains at the door, not to just swallow the sound bites or the book summaries to bring it current, but rather to look deeper and consider and make decisions based on that analysis, always, of course, undergirded by, filtered by the truth of the Word of God. We, as Christians, have no reason to check our brains at the door or check our faith at the door on Sunday when we leave church, but rather what we believe should dictate, direct, determine all that we think, say, or do. And so we don't believe in compartmentalization here on the Pondering program. No. Faith is the essence of who we are and what we do and how we vote, quite frankly. At least it should be. And so while we welcome other perspectives and talk, and we can argue and disagree, we can do it without being disagreeable. We don't have to call names, impute motives, or get nasty. But that's what we do. We talk about, think about, analyze, and consider things every weekday morning. And listen, you can participate by typing into the live stream, as some of you already are. Good morning to Wayne. Good morning to Leanne. Good morning to Susie. Good morning to Linda and Jen. Man, we are rocking it here with lots of folks already, and if I missed anybody, I'm sorry. But you can also participate if you're listening to us via podcast on multiple venues. You can go to the Pondering Radio Facebook page and type in your comments and thoughts and post them around the clock. You can also email ponderingradio@gmail.com. 24/7, 365. Again, that's ponderingradio@gmail.com, or you can call 860-500-7163. 860-500-7163. And a happy Thursday, everybody. Hope all is well for you. Hope you're hanging in there, staying positive, not letting the turkeys get you down, or anything or anyone else get you down beyond the turkeys. I saw a turkey yesterday. I forget where I was driving. Yesterday was like Wildlife Day. I mean, I saw two little fox, playing in a field and next to a nursing home I was visiting. And man, they came out and crossed that field, and then they came out again and crossed back, and then they came out a third time and were playing around some bushes. Like, this is cool. You don't get to see this too often. Of course, it's a little concerning that they're out in the daytime because that's not typical for them, but they seem to be having a good time. We, at our house also, well, I started talking about the turkey. Saw a turkey, and she was right on the edge of the road. And I knew she wanted to cross. It was a busy road. And in my rearview mirror, I saw her start to cross after I had passed her, and passed the first lane okay. Car missed getting hit there. The second lane, she didn't look like she was going to fare well. I rounded a curve, couldn't see. I think the other car, the oncoming truck, was hitting the brakes, so hopefully she made it. But man, it didn't look good. You know what I'm saying? Why did the turkey cross the road? I don't know. To become Thanksgiving dinner in that case, perhaps. But and turkeys and fox, and then our yard, our house, we're joking about it. We've created a wildlife sanctuary here at the Rissinger Ranchero. We have a rabbit that's always hanging out in the front yard. We have a big, giant, fat woodchuck under our shed that comes out. Multiple squirrels, and then with the bird feeder, every species known to man. And they all tell their little friends. And they are, man, these little birds are chowing down the bird seed. I have never seen anything like it. We'll fill the feeder, it's this high, and about that square, and it'll be top to bottom full, and within 2 days it's gone. They're just sucking it down, man. And I'm waiting to see if some of them get to the point they can't fly anymore. They're just so fat they can't get off the ground. But they're certainly happy. and we have chipmunks. I mean, it's like a sanctuary back here. It's crazy. Maybe we should build an ark. Maybe all this craziness in the world is time to build an ark. No, I know God promised not to flood it again. I don't lecture me here. Good morning to Linda. Good morning to Brenda. Good morning to Luke, who've joined us. It's great to have you aboard. So, speaking of yesterday, I had an interesting conversation with a nurse. I'm going to protect her identity, but she is one of the smartest people I've ever met. She is, I've watched her come up with solutions to patient issues and problems that just were astounding. And she's good people too. She's down to earth. She loves to fish. She and her husband do a lot of fishing and hunting, and not hunting, but more fishing. And anyway, I just like her. We've always had good conversations, and I trust her. And she has dealt with probably more COVID patients than most people will ever know of, let alone meet. She's in the midst of it every day. And again, I won't say where, but I will tell you that we're chatting about all the craziness in the world and what's going on. And I said, and I shared some things I've shared on this program about my frustration with what I feel is dramatic and drastic overkill response to the virus that's hurting us more than helping us. The $1 trillion of cost to the country for shutting down, going into lockdown mode, the emotional cost, the educational devaluation and degradation, and just the list goes on and on. Increase in depression, suicide rates, other things we're already seeing, let alone what we will see. And she said, yeah, it's way overblown. And she said, truth be told, I've been telling my friends, welcome to the Green New Deal. And I stopped and I thought about that. And I thought, wow, I've not heard this perspective. Now, lest you think it's a conspiracy theory or whatever, there are conspiracy theories out there, but that's not what she meant. And I've heard everything from this is China's payback for the China trade deal. This is the UN's desire to get rid of President Trump. This is all kinds of stuff, right? We've heard. But what's interesting in all of this is I had never thought of the Green New Deal, and it's interesting timing too. Now, if you're not familiar with the Green New Deal, it basically was proposed by Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and people like her, the Gang of Four, they call them, the excessively liberal, socialist, communist contingent within the Democrat Party. And they have tried to get this deal forwarded into law. Thankfully, Congress has been wise enough to shelve it because what it was going to do was basically ban all air travel, all automobiles, anything that burned fossil fuels. And experts agreed on both sides of the aisle, Republican, Democrat, etc. It would have literally destroyed the U.S. economy. If you think the lockdown was bad, look at what experts are saying would happen with the Green New Deal. So it didn't go anywhere. It kind of just off the front page and disappeared. And on the heels of that, we have COVID-19 and this dramatic shutdown whereby all air travel was canceled pretty much. People were laid off or businesses were shut down, so they're not driving. Still have cars, but not using them. Gas prices, oil prices plummet because people aren't using it. There's a supply and demand issue there, et cetera, et cetera. And this nurse friend of mine said, isn't that interesting that we got a bunch of what they wanted out of the Green New Deal from the lockdown? And it made me think that, we'll probably never know the full extent of it, but there are probably lots of unknown, unpublished reasons why this was pushed so hard, so extreme. For some, I'm sure it was attractive because it would limit the fossil fuel use, etc., dramatically, and it has. So I just thought that was an interesting perspective I wanted to share with you. Because the other big news, of course, yesterday and this morning is the release of John Bolton's book, The Tell-All. Imagine that. Another tell-all book right before an election. How could it be? Um, and I have not read the book, obviously, and I've not read many of the articles in depth, partly because I just can't stomach it. I'm so tired of this stuff. But I did read enough to be able to say, from a pondering perspective, the following. I think, again, whether we're talking about voting for president or voting for a local councilman or a senator, state senator, we should be considering, in my opinion, policy over personality. There are people that I have worked with and worked for who have less than attractive personalities. As a person, they may do and say things you just don't like. And if we make all our decisions based on the visceral kind of emotional response to that, we may fail, to say the least. Policy, on the other hand, has to do with someone's convictions and what they fight for, what they promote, what they, try to accomplish. I'm not being Machiavellian here. I'm not saying the ends justify the means. Don't mishear me. But I do believe that as you read through Scripture, for example, there are many people in Old and New Testament, the Old and New Testament context, who are not very attractive from a personal or personality standpoint. Some of them are violent. Some of them are have character flaws. Samson comes to mind, for example. In the New Testament sense, even in the sense of the heroes of the faith, Abraham, lying about Sarah. Again, the Bible doesn't condone it, but it also doesn't write him off as useless in God's plan because he's got a problem with his truth telling. There were many personalities who had various sins. David sinned with Bathsheba and having Uriah, in essence, executed militarily. In the New Testament, there's John the Baptist, wild-haired, grasshopper crunching guy who is caustic in what he says. I mean, very politically incorrect. He tells the Pharisees at one point, he tells them that who told you, who warned you to flee from the coming wrath, you hypocrites, right? Jesus also called them a bag of snakes at one point, brood of vipers. Paul calls the Cretans who were accusing him of being a liberal or whatever, that they are fat liars. And I am not saying the Bible condones all this behavior. What I am saying is that what they're mentioned for, what they're known for, what they're promoted for is their faith and what they stood for and in some cases died for in terms of truth and what was right. So, am I saying that President Trump is perfect? No, far from it. I'm just saying when I look at this stuff, I'm looking beyond personality to policy. One of the things I caught that I thought was interesting, and it's just a classic example of how the press likes to spin and present stuff to forward a narrative, was the big headline that one of the bombshell revelations of this new book is that the president tried to get China to help him win the 2020 election. Now let's stop right there. Even before I read further, I looked at that and I thought, well, that's the narrative, isn't it? It always has been. He tried to get Russia to help him. He tried to get the Ukraine and to help him. Now he's trying to get China to help him because he can't do it himself because everybody hates him, right? So therefore, he's going to foreign governments and illegally trying to get them to interfere in our election process. Impeach him, right? We can't. That didn't work, so let's just vote him out, and we'll vote in Joe Biden because he is the paragon of virtue when it comes to international relations. Hold on. Okay, sorry. No, I'll be consistent. Don't get mad at me. I will be consistent. I would look at Mr. Biden as based on policy as well, not necessarily personality or personal flaws. But again, if we're going to talk about, international dealings that may be in some cases illegal, I don't think Mr. Biden has much to stand on there. But anyway, especially with regard to China, quite frankly, even more than the Ukraine. But that's not the point, right? They're trying to make it the point because that's the narrative. But when you read further on that issue, what basically President Trump is accused of saying is to what's his name, Xi Jinping, if you buy more of our goods, then it will help me get reelected. There you go, meddling by foreign power. Well, remember, they negotiated a China trade deal. And the China trade deal was they had to buy more goods. And don't tell me that every leader in the history of the United States, every Secretary of State, every president, hasn't at some point developed a personal relationship with these guys in negotiation and said, listen, we get along good. If you do this, it's really going to help me when I get, up for a re-election. President Obama was caught on mic once saying to the Russian ambassador, tell Vlad if you just hang on, once I get through this next election, I can be flexible and I can do some good stuff for you. That's okay, I guess, right? but my point is that it's not a surprise. I remember the series. If you haven't watched it, it's kind of an interesting series. It was designed, obviously, to try to get Hillary Clinton elected, called Madam Secretary. It's on Netflix, and it's a series about the Secretary of State. And I thought it was well written, well acted, even though it's extremely liberal in its policies and approach. I still enjoyed it, and I thought, it was well done. She eventually does become president, and, so on and so forth. Well, in that series, interestingly enough, there are constant references to her using her personal relationship with some of these secretaries of state, presidents, premiers, etc., to try to get them to go along with policy, to try not to fight, to try to, agree to trade deals, peace, and arms agreements, etc., etc. I don't think that's unusual. I frankly think it's wise for leaders to develop personal connection. But again, saying to the premier of China, listen, if you buy more goods, it really will help me, is very different than the headline, President asked China to interfere in 2020 election. No, not really. He just asked them to buy more goods because it would help him. And it's a true statement. It's a fact. And it's something Chinese already knew, by the way. So just ponder the headlines. And again, beyond that, I would say, when we vote, when we show support, people ask me sometimes about evangelicals and the support for Trump and so forth. And I would say it's about policy. It's about his stance against abortion. It's about his stance for Christian values, including a biblical definition of marriage. It's about his stance for Christian freedom in this country that has been questioned and challenged in the last 10 years quite often. It's his stance about government, or independence, I should say, and American exceptionalism, and his stance against globalism and one world government and UN control, and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, these are issues that, to me, are attractive issues, regardless of personality. And on the flip side, someone like Mr. Biden, whose platform includes abortion on demand almost any time, even after birth in some cases, with some people in his party, whose platform includes decisions like, and support for decisions like the Supreme Court just made about the LG, what is it? I get the lesbian, gay, trans, LGBTQ, RST, whatever. All the, sexual groups and transgender groups, and the supporting those rights for those groups being equal to equal rights for minorities in the country. Again, that kind of decision where we equate sexuality and sexual expression with race, I think, is a dangerous precedent, because, listen, if I'm, and the problem with that ruling, by the way, that the Supreme Court made is, if you're a business owner, especially a Christian business owner, and maybe you have someone who's trying to do a transgender thing, and it's, it's going to affect your business. Like, what's a good example? Maybe it's a preschool like we have, And you have people that are maybe transvestite, not necessarily transgender, who want to come in and read to children, which has been popular in some school districts in some places. And you feel like that's not the message you want to send to the kids. You don't want to promote sex changes and gender identity issues because of your moral values, etc., in your school or in your workplace. And so you say, no, you can't do that, or we're not going to hire you to work with the kids, etc. As I understand the ruling the Supreme Court just made, you're in violation of the law for saying no. And that's dangerous stuff. Well, again, Mr. Biden's platform would support that kind of thing. And so we go right down the list of different policies: foreign policy, national policy, economic policy. Mr. Biden is blatantly socialist. He has Andrea Ocasio-Cortez as his advisor. She is just left of Marx in her policies and her review of economics, which she doesn't really understand. But anyway, that's plenty of reason to not vote that way, in my opinion, from a Christian perspective, apart from personality issues or failings. And so, again, we look at those things, the policies, and I think that's how we ponder and make our decisions. Am I saying we ignore character flaws or sin? No, we don't ignore those things. But barring something that would be unrepentant and maybe illegal, worthy of jail time, I think we can have some grace there and focus on decisions and policies that are going to bless the country and allow the church to continue to function over, whether or not the president said to the Chinese president or premier, hey, can you buy more of our stuff, please? Because, it's going to help me as well as help our country. I think we can live with that. At least I can. All right. Brenda says the squirrels are about to get popped in our yard. They ate the wiring out of the neighbor's car. Oh my gosh. Yoo-hoo. Not good. Yeah. They are industrious little guys, though, man, and they never stop. They just go. And if they don't have enough to keep them busy in terms of food to gather, they will find their way into the attic and they'll chew up stuff. They're little tree rats. They can be destructive. Linda says, outstanding is here. Outstanding is here. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. Outstanding is here. That's what Dave always says, right? When you ask him, Dave Townsend, a friend of ours, when you say, how you doing? Outstanding. Sorry, Linda, I'm not tracking there. Brenda says, amen, preach it. Well, thank you, Brenda. Yeah, I mean, again, we just have to think and consider these things and not just swallow at face value the headlines. And again, our decisions need to be based on what we believe, what we stand for, not just the tide of culture. We're not lemmings, we're human beings, and we need to act accordingly. Those are my thoughts for what it's worth. And, back to the thing with COVID-19 response. Am I saying never wear a mask? No, I'm not saying that. I think when you're out in public and you're going to go face to face with somebody, you're going to be within, 3 feet or less. It's good to wear it because if nothing else, you're loving your brother who's not going to be scared because they feel safe when you have a mask on. We can argue about whether or not that's realistic. Most of the masks I've seen, that is not realistic. I have to wear an N95 when I'm in most of the facilities I visit, and that's named so because it's supposed to stop 95% of moisture passing through one way or the other. But most of the masks you see in public are not N95. Most are N25 or less. Bandanas, forget it. You might as well just be, So you see these people with bandanas or all kinds of creative scarves, well, hair scarves you can see through. They sneeze, baby, you're getting it. I'm sorry. I hate to ruin it for you. I don't want you to be scared now. But it's true. I mean, medically speaking, it doesn't work to put a scarf over your face. But, hey, if nothing else, it helps others to feel better, and that's an act of love to do that, at least for now. And, to some degree, it may help you. It's more about if you have it, you're not spreading it, than it is the other way around, by the way. But wearing a mask when you're sitting in a restaurant 8 feet from the next table? No. Wearing a mask when you're walking down the street or out through the park by yourself? No. Wearing a mask when you're driving your car because I don't know what you think is going to happen to the car. If somebody drive by and moisture is going to come up through your fan, I don't know what people think. But that doesn't really help you. In fact, it might hurt you, especially if you have any kind of breathing issues, COPD, if you're prone to infections, respiratory infections, etc. You don't want to be wearing a mask when you don't have to. So I don't. It's not so much the mask wearing that bothers me. It's the shutdown of all these businesses. It's the government interference in ways that make no sense. I mean, trying to force 3-year-olds to wear masks in preschool or daycare. Come on. Trying to force patients who are, dementia patients who are developmentally acting like they're 3 or 4 because of their mental loss of capacity, trying to force them to wear masks. Come on, stop. Keeping families away from loved ones in facilities that are tightly controlled and maintained, even with the proper PPE and other protection, such that they can't see their loved ones, and then when they pass, not allowing them to have a funeral, while at the same time allowing gangs to riot in the street with no masks on and no pushback, and or allow funerals for people like Mr. Floyd with 550 people in one room, shoulder to shoulder, high-fiving and hugging. That dichotomy, that discrepancy, that hypocrisy, and that overreach in government's behalf to stop the citizenry from doing things that really are not a danger to them or others. Playgrounds for children being shut down. I mean, I could go down the list. There are just tons of these things that are far beyond reality in terms of what would medically make a difference, what's really needed and necessary, and what creates more harm than it solves. That's where I get wired up a bit, where I think we need to rethink and open up again the country and let people return to some sense of normalcy. We don't need these unemployment rates. It's not helping us. We don't need to see these businesses, some of which have been invested in for years and years and years, shut down. And this government overreach has now extended itself into the racial realm with as a fallout from the riots in major cities. Yesterday, many of you heard that Aunt Jemima, as a brand, is being discontinued because it's racially offensive. And yet, when you look into the history of the woman who represented Aunt Jemima, who was the actress whose picture is actually characterized as Aunt Jemima, and the pancake labels, etc., and the syrup, you find that you have a woman who was a slave, who was free, went into business, became a model, and became very rich and wealthy for her contract with, who is it? I want to say it's, I just lost the name of the company. But anyway, for doing the Aunt Jemima pancakes, etc., and becoming their spokesmodel, going around and speaking about their products and etc. Was it really an example of abuse? Is it really an example of slavery? Is it an example of, oppression and white supremacy? Or is it an expression of the American dream being lived out in the life of this very real woman whose picture is on the pancake label and the syrup bottle? Something to think about. But anyway, government overreach and the cultural overreach that we're seeing for both COVID-19 as well as for in response to racial unrest, I think is scary. I don't think it's a good trend. I don't think it helps us. I think as God's people, we should be standing for freedom with love, with grace, but nonetheless with firmness. So various rambling thoughts of the day and the day's news for you. It's a little after 8. We got to wrap up. But listen, guys, appreciate you joining me and being a part of the program today. Bless you. Jen says, I'm very thankful to have pastors who are not willing to compromise, even when it goes against what society is pushing on us. Thank you to Pastors Joel and Steve. Well, thank you, Jen. God bless you. Appreciate that. Jim says, stand for truth. Amen, brother. And Wayne says, way to go, class. Have a great day. That's right, brother. Hey, guys, thanks for being with me. Thanks for being part of this. We'll be back tomorrow with Free for All Friday, so be thinking of topics, verses, questions, challenging theological issues for me, whatever you have in mind. I would love it. We'll tackle it. Bring it. tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m. Tell your friends, neighbors, and complete strangers about pondering. Let's get some more people pondering with us, and we'll see you mañana. Listen, stay in the Word, keep praying, and keep pondering, will you? Love you guys. Bye for now.